let's continue the concept about safety in the international world. Some countries, it's no big deal. You go and you set up a business and you can conduct business just like you can here in the United States. Other countries, you go in and they have a whole different set of values, thoughts, and processes. You have to certainly pay attention to that. We spent a lot of time already talking about it, but then there's a lot of countries on planet Earth that don't have even close to the security that we have as a nation here in the United States. We don't often see that. We complain about the problems we have over here, but put yourself in another world. What's interesting is I find that my friends that often come from other countries and decide to take residence here in the United States, they probably appreciate our country more than most Americans do because they've been someplace else and they see how great we have it in the United States. They came from another country. They see what that world is like, and they want to come here because of the good things we have, and we don't even know how good we have it as we go through. There's a lot of parts of planet Earth that really aren't safe for the average person. Maritime piracy incidents, you can see them going up and up and up. You can see them also. These are not all the ones that are recorded. Look at the increase we've had in the last several years in Latin America and the Caribbean Sea as you go through. And you see a whole number of incidents that are going up and up and up as you go through. People on a boat, either often mercantile ships or carrying oil, they'll be sitting just cruising along, minding their business, and all of a sudden a ship comes over or a boat, they come up, and sometimes they're actually part of a formal navy from another government. They take over the ship, or they decide to get interesting, have missile practice on one of the ships happening to go through the straits near their thing, just because they want to, just to impress somebody. Who knows what the motivation is, but regardless, piracy is becoming a bigger part of our world as you go through. You can see a ship over here. They got to put barbed wire on the side of their ship to keep people trying to board their ship off as they go through. They hire guards with machine guns to go through and patrol the decks in case somebody else is coming up in the process. The navies now of the world actually are spending a lot of time dealing with piracy issues as you go through. Global kidnapping risk across the entire world is becoming a hobby. Hey, you know what? Let's, instead of hanging here drinking a beer, let's go down and kidnap an American. I hear they're down the street over here. Maybe it's not quite that casual. Maybe it's more formal, except for the fact that it is big business on planet Earth in the aspect of kidnapping people and holding them for ransom, or even involved in trafficking of people as you go through as well, which is actually right now at one of the highest peaks we've had ever recorded before. There's a lot of bad things happening in the world. And if your country is in a country that puts yourself at risk, you need to be very careful in the process as you go through. Now, by the way, sometimes you may not be at risk, but make the assumption. So don't assume anything. Go out and check the data before you go back and start making an assumption as to which country is safe and which one isn't. The data can be found in what they call a CRA, the country risk assessment, and usually it's a country economic system of politics determines how much risk to employees. I was with a friend of mine over in the Middle East, and we went through the United Nations, the U.S. State Department just sent out a bulletin, and it basically, they had a couple of French tourists that were dressed inappropriately in a country that didn't look on the people who went bathing topless, and they were found slain on the beaches, and they gave a warning and a health alert about that and everything else. So everybody was all worried about it and everything else. Pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to who lives there, and make sure you respect their customs as you go through. So the risk assessment is a big deal. The State Department put these out there available. Generally, if you ask for them from the State Department, if you're going to go into another country in the process you go through. You also want to sample the risk rankings. You'll see them in The Economist and the Wall Street Journal, other places as you go through. Some of them, if you want to go in Somalia, you really are playing with fire in the process as you go through. There's a chance you may not come out of there in the process. So be cautious about going into countries that are known to have high risk of violence in the process, because you are nothing but a target sometimes, even if your company wants to send you there. So be careful. Your company should be paying attention to that and make certain you're properly insured on different aspects. So types of countermeasures, know the country risk assessment as you go through, make certain there's insurance, outsource skills such as hostage negotiations, train for daily living skills, change your driving routes, don't follow the same one. I was in a country one time and we're walking down the street, a shopkeeper says, get in here. So my wife and I, we finally listened to him. We hopped in there. He says, you two, are you paying attention? You have somebody following you down the street. And so we listened to the story. We hung out there for half an hour or so. And he said, talked about the aspect of in our country, the teens can sit down and commit murder. And by the time they're 17, they're released back out in the streets as adults. And that doesn't count towards them. So they have no problem going out and killing a couple of tourists wandering around. We didn't know any better. We were naive. It is just that simple. So pay attention to what you're doing on the regular basis, because it is not the United States outside of the United States. It's a different country. So different aspects, always pay attention. Governments, in a sense, in the USA, have an obligation to keep the citizens safe. We view that as part of our overall government. Sometimes that's not the same thing in other countries. Sometimes another country may not feel as important to keep another country's citizens safe as you go through. All trade has risks. Some of them have more risks than others, and it's your job and your company's job to make certain that the employees that are abroad in different countries are safe as you go through. Take care.